Hi guys, and welcome to the Derby vs Sunderland match preview. But before we do get into it, I just want to straight away throw this in your face. I very rarely do this, but if you have a look at the stats, there's over 50% of you guys that aren't yet subscribed, and you're continuously watching the videos and you're not subscribed yet. So if you're hovering over the button, if you just click it for me, that'd be so nice. It'd be really appreciated, and it just gives me the motivation to continue making these videos, because I do enjoy making them for you, but it's also nice to see this channel grow from time to time. So yeah, if you're a regular viewer, you think I've earned it, it'd be very nice, it'd be very kind of you and very generous if you did hit the subscribe button. Thank you very much. But yeah, we'll crack on getting into this one. Of course, going off the back of the last game against Burnley, 0-0 draw, the two penalties, it felt like it kind of was left on a negative note, and I think penalties aside, we largely looked like we were going to be the only team that were going to win that game against a very strong Burnley side, particularly in the second half anyway. But yes, of course, a lot of negativity does come with missing two penalties. I totally get that. I was watching the Regis Labrie presser earlier on, and of course I watch it anyway to make sure I get the up-to-date transfer news or injury updates and stuff like that anyway. But I was quite interested to see if anyone would ask how Wilson Isidore has been in terms of his morale, has everyone rallied around him, which I would expect anyway. You know, I want to see where his sort of headset is, where everyone else's mindset is because of that game, and because it was a bit of a what's the best way to put it? It was a bit of a mindfuck, you know, at the end of that game, because I think, like I said before the game, you would have taken a point, but to miss two penalties, which is very rare, by the same player in close succession, it was a very strange feeling after the game. There was, of course, a lot of people frustrated, angry, and, you know, rightly so, but then there's also others who feel just really almost mourning and feel sad for Wilson Isidore. But we crack on, we move on, and Regis did say that, you know, straight after the game, we didn't linger on the whole penalty situation. We didn't really discuss it. We didn't want an emotional conversation straight after the game because he didn't feel it would be productive. However, since then, you know, let a day or two pass, then they have discussed it behind closed doors. But everyone is of a really good mindset. So I'm glad it has been addressed. I don't think it's definitely not one of those things that should just be, you know, brushed under the carpet and swept aside. The penalty taking issue does have to be discussed, why it was taken, what's the thought process, and then practice, which apparently Wilson has been practicing, is penalties. So if he does remain the penalty taker, that remains to be seen. But we are taking on Derby. We're going away from home Tuesday night against Derby. And last 5 games, Derby have lost all 5 in all competitions, including an FA Cup tie against, I think it was Leyton Orient. They lost on penalties. Their last victory in the league was actually Boxing Day, a very good win actually, against West Brom. Of course, a very good side. Now, Derby, you know, last time out, they got beat 2-0 by Watford, and I've seen bits and pieces of that game, and I think Derby fans will likely feel very aggrieved that they come away with nothing, because, you know, they hit the bar twice in the space of about 10 seconds, they hit the post, they missed a couple of sitters as well, and Watford kind of got them on the break twice, really. And they do look very dangerous going forward, and this is the thing with Derby. You know, we beat them 2-0 back at the Stadium Light, but they give a good account of themselves there as well, Derby, to be fair. But with Derby, what I find is, because they do have that pace up top with Jackson on one side, Mendes Lang, they've technically gifted, you know, Jerry Yates down the middle as a number 9 and pressing forward, and they have that little bit of creativity. They do like to pile bodies forward, and when they do that, they are definitely a little bit vulnerable to a counter-attack, which is something that would play absolutely into our wheelhouse, because that's what we like to do with our pace on the counter-attack. But that's what they're generally quite dangerous. Of course, they haven't been as clinical as they would have liked to have been, because otherwise they wouldn't have lost the games they have done in recent weeks. But at the back, that's where they find that they're a little bit all over the place, and they can get a little bit chaotic when it doesn't really need to be at times. The basics aren't exactly being met at the back, if that's probably the nicest way to put it with Derby. Watchers now will play them, and they'll have an absolute blinder at the back, and they'll be defensively sound. But generally, at the back, they can be caught out quite easily, particularly when they do commit bodies forward. So I do think if we manage to get an early goal or something, I can see it being a bit of a cricket score. However, I don't think it is going to be as easy as that. I think it could be quite a close affair, particularly if we don't score early. I think that's when we're really going to get a tough test in our hands away from home. But with us, you know, I'm going to show you my preferred 11 in a moment. Of course, Regis did discuss injuries. Chris Mepham, apparently, you know, at first I thought it was going to be quite a bad one, because although he walked off the pitch and seemed quite capable of walking off the pitch, he was barely even limping. Quite a lot of people were suggesting it might have been a hamstring issue, which can be quite a lengthy affair in terms of dealing with it and recovering. But apparently he's actually been back on the grass today and he's in full training. So I don't know whether he will take a precaution and bring in Ballard and put him alongside Luke O'Nien, or whether Mepham is just going to go straight back into that back 4. Not too sure. I do have quite a few thoughts for the potential 11. A couple of them is kind of me just predicting, but a lot of it is what I would maybe want. I will, rather than me rambling, because I can feel a ramble come on, I will show you my sort of preferred 11 and explain a little bit. So I'll get it up on screen for you now. So as you can see, Patterson in goal, Sirkin, O'Nien, Mepham and Hume. Now, one thing I do want to discuss is, of course, firstly, Mepham, if he's fully fit, he starts, in my opinion. Ballard, of course, if Mepham isn't 100% and still a little bit shaky maybe, I would put Ballard in there alongside O'Nien. Hume at right back. Now, I've seen a lot of people, particularly online recently, discuss Trey Hume, saying we need to have a conversation about him, basically. Now, I don't think he's been anywhere near as poor as some people have made out. However, I do agree that because he's set such a high standard for himself in recent times, I do feel that his performances have been below par in terms of he has been a little bit all over the place. He'll cut out a handful, maybe a few times too many, at least for my liking, in terms of his positioning. He used to be so good at looking after the ball, but he's been trying to force it quite a lot lately and giving away the ball. So if it was to happen, which I don't think it will, if Rodgers did see fit that Hume needs a break or maybe needs to be brought out, I wouldn't be absolutely against seeing Luke O'Nien at right back and Ballard alongside Mepham in the middle. And I know I've seen a lot of people in the comments, they absolutely prefer and feel more comfortable with Ballard and Mepham in a centre two, which I do agree. I would feel safe with Ballard and Mepham, absolutely. Probably a little bit more safe than if Luke O'Nien were there, to be honest with you, because I do think defensively they're both better than Luke O'Nien. However, like I keep on saying, with the type of football we want to play and play out from the back, Luke O'Nien gives us that, and Luke O'Nien is better than Mepham and Dan Ballard at bringing the ball out and carrying the ball forward from the back and progressing from the back. You know, when you've got the likes of Patterson, who, yeah, I think he's a decent keeper. I don't think he's anywhere near as good as some people make out. He's not great with his feet. You know, Mepham, I think he's perfectly tidy with his feet, but he's not quite O'Nien. If you put Ballard in there, who's okay with his feet, but again, not quite O'Nien. If you get rid of that, we could be in for a bit of a nightmare. If we're trying to play out from the back and you've got both Mepham and Ballard who aren't anywhere near as comfortable as O'Nien, and Patterson, who isn't fantastic with his feet as well, you kind of take out a huge chunk of our game, if that makes sense. But yeah, again, I wouldn't be absolutely opposed to seeing O'Nien at right back and Ballard in there in the middle and Hume dropping. But yeah, that's just a bit of a discussion point, really. I just thought I would at least bring up. Now, going forward, as you can see, this was a nightmare. It was quite a nice nightmare to have, really, because Chris Rigg, I have dropped him. Don't think he's played particularly poorly. I just think against Burnley, he was a little bit anonymous at times. I don't think it was poor. It wasn't like he was giving the ball away every 2 seconds or anything like that. He just didn't show up enough for me and didn't contribute too much. Defensively, he worked hard, but you know, we like to see Chris Rigg creatively and working forward. And I don't think we saw enough of him. Again, against Burnley, you're not going to have too many opportunities to do that. But I think now that we have brought in the standard of the likes of Lefay, you need to be brutal and we need to put out our best 11. And this for me is just, again, I could change anything here, but I just think seeing Dan Neil in the middle as the anchor, but I'd still like to see him break forward from time to time. But I think bringing Lefay off the left wing, which even though I think he played very, very well against Burnley and absolutely did not put a foot wrong, imagine how good he was. You know, if he played that well on left wing against a team like Burnley, how good would he actually be in his actual position against Derby, which is no disrespect to Derby, but this is where we need to start seeing Lefay from now on. Not just shoehorning him in anywhere, playing to his strengths. Lefay would be fantastic there. Job in there as well, who I think just edges Rigg for me. Now on the right-hand side, Mayenda. I just think Roberts had a really quiet, pretty much ineffective game against Burnley, which again, against a team like Burnley, it's always going to be difficult to get into anyway against such a possession-heavy side. But Mayenda, as soon as he comes on the pitch, his link-up play with Isidore is fantastic. You might say, why don't we go for a 2 up top? But I just don't know. I can't think of a system where that would all work unless we end up putting Lefay out at left mid again, and then when Mayenda and Isidore up top, and Bellingham's not going to play on the wing, is he? So, or Job, should I say? So yeah, this is kind of what I've gone with. Al-Shish on the left hand side. I personally don't actually think this is going to happen. I think Al-Shish is probably going to drop down the pecking order again now, sadly, because I don't think he put too much of a foot wrong. He's played very well in my opinion. But I just think the creative mind of Al-Shish, Lefay complement him as well. You get the physicality and the brute force of Job. Mayenda, direct, running, pacey. And then Isidore, for me, Isidore absolutely starts for me. And I just think it'd be great for him to, it's a quick turnaround of games. It's a great opportunity for him to straight away right his wrongs, which is probably and essentially the reason why he took a second penalty, but it didn't go to plan, did it? It kind of bit him on the arse a little bit. But to get opportunities, I think that team there that I've put down will make opportunities for Isidore. Of course, we need to be clinical ourselves because we have been very, very wasteful. You could very easily put Roberts on the left-hand side. I have said in the past, I'd like to see Roberts on the left and not Mayanda on the right, because we have seen when Mayenda's been forced to play on the left, he's ineffective as much as he is on the right, should I say, and he's just very clearly and visibly uncomfortable on the left. And Roberts, I think there was one game where they did chop and change and they rotated Mayenda and Roberts on the wings, and Roberts actually looked very, very good on the left. So maybe Roberts for Al-Sheesh there and he's up top. I'm not too sure. I just feel very, very comfortable with this 11, and I think with the 4-4-2, which he might play, I feel we get crowded out a little bit in the middle, and I don't want to allow Derby to do that. I feel like putting that trio in the middle of Daniel, Lafay and Bellingham, I think that'll make it very, very difficult for Derby to try and control and push us back. So I think this is the way I would go with. Because I think going forward, if, like I said, Derby do like to break forward, if they do with their pace, if we manage to counter on them, the amount of creativity and attacking-minded players there is pretty massive. So that is the 11 I'd probably go with maybe the occasional change that I won't be opposed against. But let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of that 11? Would you change it? What would you do? Or do you agree? Let me know in the comments down below. Now for my score predictions. I've been umming and ahhing about this one because I think if we don't get an early goal, maybe even just first half and it's a 0-0, I can see it being a very scrappy affair, almost just a battle for possession almost. And I can see it maybe being like a 1-0 in our favour, maybe grabbing a late goal, but it being ultimately a very 50-50 game. But on the flip side, I can just feel that if we do get an early goal, and ideally it would be Wilson Isidore who gets it, just to get his confidence back up, I can just see it being a floodgate, or the floodgate's just open for Derby. Because going forward, as I say, they are dangerous, but when they do start to commit, and if we do score first and early, they're going to have to commit regardless. I think in the back, they are just a bit shaky, and we could really catch them on the break with the pace we've got and getting in the face. Lafay finding Isidore, Mayenda on one side as well, break forward. Job with his power. Al-Sheesh, if he is to play, maybe not. But yeah, I'd be very, very confident, or at least I'd be very happy if of course, Isidore scores first, and I can just see it being like a 3-0. So I'm going to go for that anyway. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to go for a Sunderland 3-0 win, but it could easily go totally wrong way. But let me know in the comments down below what you think. Do you agree? What team would you put? What scoreline do you think it's going to be? But yeah, there has been little bits of rumours here and there again, but I don't think it warranted a full video. It looks like Tom Cannon and Ben Brereton Diaz, it's been heavily reported that both of them are going to be going to Sheffield United, which it is what it is. I didn't necessarily... I wasn't totally 100% like, say, for example, Tom Cannon coming to Sunderland. It looked like it was possibly likely, but it seems, I think Sheffield United, they just have the financial means to, one, get the pull in terms of a contract, but two, I think they've agreed to give a big lump sum first and foremost, whereas ours was a loan to buy. They want the money immediately, Leicester, which makes sense. And Ben Brereton Diaz, as I've already reported, he always had a favour towards Sheffield United, so it wouldn't surprise me if that happened as well. Yeah, but that is everything, guys. If you have enjoyed, hit the like button for me. It'd be massively, massively appreciated. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. But for now, take care, stay jammy. Away the lads.